They're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarfs.
Okay, but what do they call them?
Why would they get rid of the
call
dwarves though?
Magical creatures.
But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it. The disability, like we're a disability group. You just erase that whole image. The argument should have been from Peter Dinklage. There's power of being on TV. There's power of television. And to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there. If the story is offensive, change the story, don't change the character.
Disney's Snow White remake was meant to be a bold, modern reimagining of a classic fairy tale. But what happened behind the scenes? Well, this film turned into a full-blown disaster. Critics, fans, and even the stars themselves were caught up in a whirlwind of controversy, with one name echoing through every discussion: Rachel Ziegler. You'd think casting her in the iconic role of Snow White would be a step forward, right? Well, not exactly. The decision stirred up its own storm of backlash, but that was just the beginning. The real chaos came when a beloved actor, Peter Dinklage, entered the picture. His comments about the portrayal of the Seven Dwarfs sent shockwaves through the production, triggering rewrites, tension on set, and endless debates about representation. But here's the twist. Rumor has it that Ziegler herself wasn't happy with how everything unfolded. She's reportedly blamed Dinklage for sparking the mess that threw the entire project into disarray. But how did it all go so wrong? Let's break it down.
This would have been a lot better if they, had a strong male along with her, a prince, if it wasn't about socialism, if they didn't remove the dwarves, if they had real dwarves. It doesn't need a prince to save her and not surrounded by 7 weird people. Oh, okay, just CGI fictional goblins, I guess.
When Disney announced that Snow White was getting the live-action treatment, expectations were high. After all, Disney had been successful with other remakes like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, so fans were eager to see how they would update the iconic 1937 classic. Enter Rachel Ziegler, a rising star known for her role in West Side Story, cast as Snow White. While some praised Disney's decision to cast a Latina actress in the role, arguing that it brought inclusivity and fresh representation, others couldn't help but question the logic. Snow White is traditionally depicted as German, so the casting seemed like a major departure from the original. At first, it was hard to tell whether the backlash was rooted in genuine concern or simply a knee-jerk reaction to change. Yet, as the news of Ziegler's casting settled, it became clear that Disney had taken a bold step in updating this age-old story. But soon, the excitement surrounding her casting began to sour, as fans wondered how far Disney was willing to push the boundaries of the original tale. This sense of uncertainty only grew when Peter Dinklage, an actor known for advocating for better representation of little people in Hollywood, publicly criticized the depiction of the Seven Dwarfs in the remake. Dinklage's comments immediately struck a nerve with many. Suddenly, what should have been a celebration of a new Snow White became a storm of public backlash and confusion. But that was only the beginning. Things were about to get much worse.
Peter Dinklage destroyed Disney, and it could end up costing the company over $100 million. Disney has cast Rachel Zegler to play Snow White, which caused a lot of controversy because Zegler is Hispanic and the character is traditionally German. That controversy is being compared to Halle Bailey's Little Mermaid, which did lose $50 million, making only $555 million in a budget of $250 million. Peter Dinklage comes into this as when Rachel Zegler was cast, he laughed at Disney saying it's fake progressivism. The reason being that Peter Dinklage, who does have achondroplasia, finds the depiction of the Seven Dwarfs very offensive. Peter Dinklage was criticized by some actors with similar conditions, like Dylan Postal said Peter Dinklage was being selfish and that community needs more work. There's now an effort in Hollywood to not cast little people and instead do things like cast Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa.
The calm surrounding the Snow White remake was about to be shattered. Enter Peter Dinklage, a seasoned actor who has been vocal about the representation of little people in Hollywood. In a powerful statement, Dinklage voiced his concerns over Disney's plans to portray the Seven Dwarfs in a way he felt was outdated and offensive. Dinklage, who is known for his role in Game of Thrones, expressed frustration that Disney was going ahead with what he considered harmful stereotypes, despite the studio's efforts to position itself as progressive. His comments sparked a heated debate. Some defended Dinklage, arguing that he was right to call out a Hollywood tradition that had long relied on caricatures of little people. Others, however, felt that his criticism was overblown and that it shouldn't derail what was, for all intents and purposes, a beloved fairy tale. What was meant to be a modernization of Snow White quickly became a flashpoint for discussions about inclusivity, representation, and the changing dynamics of Hollywood. For Disney, this became a tricky situation. They were caught between trying to respect a treasured story and avoiding perpetuating harmful cliches. The conversation surrounding Dinklage's remarks quickly grew, with some fans arguing that if the story needed changing, it should be the narrative, not the characters. But as the debate raged on, it became clear that the pressure on Disney was mounting. The studio was under fire to either defend its approach or make significant adjustments, and they were running out of time to get it right.
Or can we just say midgie?
Okay. Midget, dwarf, they're out of work. They're replaced by CGI things. Yes. Like, this is just a perfect
example. That.
When there's
Thing 12.
There's no guiding principle, just progress for the sake of progress, and you're just trying to weave around a fence after.
As Peter Dinklage's comments reverberated throughout Hollywood, the pressure on Disney grew exponentially. What began as a discussion about the portrayal of the Seven Dwarfs quickly spiraled into a full-scale public relations nightmare. Disney found itself trapped in a difficult balancing act, trying to stay true to a beloved classic while appeasing the growing demands for more sensitive and inclusive representations. The studio's desire to modernize Snow White for a new generation collided headfirst with the original story's problematic elements. As the controversy continued to gain momentum, the film's creative team reportedly scrambled to make last-minute changes. Rumors spread that the script was being reworked, with one of the primary concerns being how to address the portrayal of the dwarves. Test screenings revealed just how disjointed the film was becoming. Audiences were reportedly confused by the tonal shifts, and the attempts to incorporate modern values into the story felt forced and out of place. Many fans who had been excited about the film were now growing increasingly skeptical. In the midst of this chaos, Rachel Ziegler, the star at the center of it all, stayed largely silent. This only fueled speculation about her role in the controversy. Was she unhappy with how things were unfolding, or was she simply bound by her contractual obligations not to speak out? Whatever the case, Ziegler became the face of the film's problems. The spotlight shifted from the movie itself to her personal involvement in the mess, creating even more tension around an already troubled production.
Rachel Zegler is supposed to play Snow White. She's Latina. It says, literally no offense to anyone, but I was a little taken aback that they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White, but you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
As the Snow White remake's production continued to spiral, rumors began circulating that Rachel Ziegler wasn't just caught in the middle of the controversy. She might actually be blaming Peter Dinklage for much of the chaos. Unverified reports suggested that Ziegler was privately frustrated with the way Dinklage's comments had sent the project into a tailspin. According to these rumors, she felt that Dinklage's public criticism had triggered a frantic wave of changes from Disney, forcing them to rework key elements of the story. As a result, the production's tone became uneven, and her performance seemed inconsistent with the original vision. The rumors about Ziegler's private frustrations only added fuel to the fire. Fans who had already been divided over the film's direction now found themselves grappling with the possibility of infighting between the film's stars. Could Ziegler, who had been so enthusiastic about the project at the start, really be turning on Dinklage? And if she was, what did that say about the production as a whole? While there was no solid proof of Ziegler's alleged comments, the speculation snowballed, and soon the Dinklage versus Ziegler narrative became a key talking point among fans and the media. The blame game played perfectly into the public's desire to pinpoint a single cause for the film's failure. But in reality, the film's issues ran much deeper than any one individual's remarks. Still, the rumor mill churned, adding yet another layer of drama to a project already drowning in controversy.
With Snow White, let's go through this, right? There's no prince. Woman doesn't need a prince.
Oh, Lord.
Really? Okay, good luck
up.
back then. Benson, someone goes like, hey, Seven Dwarfs is offensive to midgets. You're like, oh, okay, so let's just not employ any of them.
Yes. Peter Dinklage.
By the time Disney's Snow White was finally released, the film had already become a cautionary tale of what happens when a major studio tries to update a classic without a clear vision. The months of controversy had taken a toll on the project, and it was clear that no amount of marketing could undo the damage done by endless public debates. Reviews came pouring in, and they were mostly underwhelming. While the film had a glossy, visually stunning look, critics highlighted the film's inability to find a cohesive tone. Some parts felt nostalgic, nostalgic, but others seemed forced in their attempt to cater to modern values, which left the movie feeling fractured and uneven. The portrayal of the Seven Dwarfs was another sticking point. Dinklage's concerns had led to changes that many felt took away the whimsical charm that the dwarfs brought to the original. In an attempt to avoid stereotypes, Disney overcorrected, and the result was a portrayal that felt flat, almost lifeless. What had once been an integral part of Snow White's story was now reduced to a confusing mix of CGI and ambiguous character design, further alienating audiences. Rachel Ziegler, still the face of the film, found herself under constant scrutiny. Fans and critics alike debated her performance, with some praising her resilience given the tumultuous production, while others felt she was miscast from the start. Regardless, she became the scapegoat for a film that seemed to lose its way from the very beginning. The Snow White remake had failed to live up to expectations, and now it was the subject of endless online criticism, further cementing its place in Hollywood's failed remakes history.
It's this weird thing where he's saying, like, oh, it's bad that we're still doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, so he doesn't necessarily want that. But as little people actors, it's like, well, we kind of want to work. We kind of want that part, and if that's what's available, then that's what we'd like to do. But at the same time, I get what he's saying, because yeah, people are like, well, was it that bad? I go, yeah, because at the time, dwarves really didn't have any representation.
As the Snow White disaster unfolded, one story kept bubbling to the surface: the rumored clash between Peter Dinklage and Rachel Ziegler. While Dinklage's comments about the portrayal of the Seven Dwarfs had ignited the controversy, the narrative soon shifted toward whether Ziegler herself blamed him for the production's downfall. Some reports claimed that Ziegler privately expressed frustration with how Dinklage's remarks had triggered sweeping changes to the film. These alleged comments only fueled the ongoing debate, and fans began to take sides, some empathizing with Ziegler's position as the star stuck in the middle of a storm, and others pointing fingers at her for not speaking out sooner. The media buzzed with speculation about whether the tensions on set were the real reason behind the film's tonal inconsistencies. Could Ziegler's performance, often described as either commendable or miscast, have been better if the production hadn't been plagued by these behind-the-scenes issues? Was she unfairly blamed for a situation she didn't create? The narrative around Ziegler's potential blame became almost as big as the film's release itself, with fans dissecting every interview, social media post, and public appearance she made, looking for any sign that she might confirm or deny the rumors. Meanwhile, Dinklage remained relatively quiet during this period, which only intensified speculation. Was he distancing himself from the production out of respect for the cast? Or did he feel the final product had deviated too far from his original concerns? His silence created a void that allowed the story to grow, fueling the narrative that the clash between the two stars was the real reason for the film's failure.
Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but then you're still making that backwards story about seven dwarves living in a cave together. What the fuck are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough.
As the Snow White remake became mired in controversy, it served as a microcosm of a larger issue that Hollywood has grappled with for years: the struggle to modernize classic tales without losing their essence. Disney's decision to revisit Snow White was driven by the desire to make the story more relevant to today's audiences, but in trying to do so, they found themselves caught in a web of competing expectations. On one hand, the studio wanted to honor the fairy tale's nostalgic charm, but on the other, it sought to inject modern values, like inclusivity and social progress, into a story that had been beloved for generations. This clash between tradition and progress proved to be a major hurdle. Fans who cherished the original Snow White feared that too many changes would ruin the magic of the fairy tale, while others pushed for the story to evolve to reflect current sensibilities. Disney's attempts to update the film, like casting Rachel Ziegler as Snow White, were seen as an effort to bring fresh representation, but they alienated those who felt that such changes were unnecessary or out of place. The controversy surrounding the Seven Dwarfs was just the tip of the iceberg. Once Dinklage's critique about representation set the ball rolling, the entire production became a patchwork of hasty changes, confusing plot lines, and conflicting creative visions. It highlighted the difficulty of balancing tradition with modernity, and how even the most well-intentioned updates can alienate both old and new fans when they aren't executed with clarity and care. In the end, it seemed that Disney's attempt to modernize Snow White had lost its way, struggling to reconcile these competing demands. The Snow White remake may go down in history as one of Disney's most high-profile misfires. What was supposed to be a progressive reimagining of a beloved classic turned into a whirlwind of controversy, with tensions running high both behind the scenes and in the public eye. From the initial backlash over Rachel Ziegler's casting to Peter Dinklage's outspoken critique of the film's portrayal of the Seven Dwarfs, every step of the journey seemed to stir up more problems than it solved. The whispers of blame, particularly the rumors of Ziegler pointing fingers at Dinklage, only added another layer of complexity to a project already struggling to find its footing. Ultimately, Snow White failed not just because of one actor's remarks or one decision made by the studio, but because the entire production lacked a unified vision. Disney's attempt to modernize a classic fairy tale collided with the weight of its legacy, leading to a confusing mishmash that left many feeling unsatisfied. Whether or not Ziegler truly blamed Dinklage, the fact remains that the chaos behind the scenes overshadowed the film itself, leaving fans and critics alike questioning the future of Hollywood's live-action remakes. As Disney moves forward with more reimaginings, the lessons from the Snow White disaster will surely linger. The question remains, can studios successfully update these iconic stories without losing the magic? Or will they continue to fall victim to the pressure of appeasing both nostalgia and modern sensibilities? Only time will tell, but for now, the Snow White remake stands as a stark reminder of how creative discord and rushed decisions can turn a dream project into a cautionary tale.